I am going to discuss about the muscle of forearm. Forearm, I have told you, forearm is a area down the elbow to the wrist joint. The area is known as forearm, and the muscle which present within this area is known as forearm muscle. So we can divide the forearm muscle into two compartments like arm muscle, anterior compartment and posterior compartment. Anterior compartment muscle is also known as flexor compartment muscle, whereas the posterior compartment of muscle is known as extensor. So this is flexor compartment, anteriorly, posteriorly extensor compartment. And most of the tendon of muscle of the forearm are surrounded by a sheath called tendinous sheath. Tendinous sheath means a covering, a fibrous layer, a fascial layer which is covering the muscle fiber. So most of the forearm muscle is covered by a tendinous layer, and most of these muscle have a thick proximal belly which become a relative narrow distal tendon. The next specific feature of forearm muscle, when these muscle originate from the proximal bone, they have thicker. That's why you have flesh mass near the proximal elbow joint, near the distal elbow joint, near to. But when you come down, you will feel narrowing, you will feel less muscle. The number of muscle is same, but girth of muscle is tapered down when you come distal to the forearm. So this is the specific feature of forearm muscle, whether it is a posterior muscle of forearm or anterior muscle of forearm. Therefore, I have told you two specific things. First thing, all the muscle, most of the muscle of forearm is enclosed in a tendinous sheath. And the second thing, this forearm muscle has thicker belly in proximal forearm but thinner in the distal forearm. Therefore, the forearm is roughly a segmented cone with a base of the cone proximally and a smaller diameter by the wrist. It look like cone. Cone mean broader proximally, narrower distally. The forearm, like the arm, is also surrounded by a connective tissue membrane, the antebrachial fascia, and the muscle of forearm fascia gives out intramuscular septum to the bone of the forearm. It means they are, I have told you, all muscle is surrounded by fascia. So this fascia gives out the intramuscular septum to the bone of forearm. Intramuscular septum, it means all muscle, number of muscle, but they are not together. All muscles of forearm are divided in different compartments by a help of septa, a membrane. Clear? All the muscle is separated by a septa. So this is known as intramuscular septum. It means all muscle, you can see in the diagram, all muscle is having different septas and different compartments. The posterior surface of antebrachial fascia is thicker on the distal end and form the extensor retinaculum. All the muscle, all the fascia comes here, and near the wrist joint it will form the extensor retinaculum. This retinaculum arises from the lateral side of metaphysis of ulna. Metaphysis means where your ulna is uniting to the epiphysis, the end portion of ulna. This retinaculum means a complex structure, a complete compact structure known as extensor retinaculum and flexor retinaculum. I have told you all the muscle are cone-like in different fascias, intermuscular fascias. They are coming down and make a compact structure. They are basically known as extensor retinaculum and flexor retinaculum. This retinaculum arises from the lateral side of metaphysis of ulna as well as radial stellate process and end at the ulnar stellate process. It means extensor retinaculum originate from the lateral side of radial stellate process of ulna and come from this area is known as extensor retinaculum. It holds the muscle tendon over the plane of bones during contraction. It means it provides a platform. This extensor retinaculum provides a platform. There are number of muscle. Number of tendon are running to the wrist joint, and they are divided by intramuscular septum. It means 10. Suppose if there is 10 fibers, they all are coming. So this extensor retinaculum provide a base and it will hold all the tendon which is crossing wrist joint from the forearm to the wrist to the hand. So it extensor retinaculum provide a base. The anterior surface of retinaculum send out fibrous sheath partition of the bone and forearm. This form the osteofibrous canal of groove in which pass the tendon of the extensor muscle of the forearm. Starting from ulnar to radial side, each row of the canal contain. It means whole retinaculum is make a fibrous band over which tendon is going. So all canals, all tendons are arranged in a specific canal is known as extensor retinaculum. And there are number of canal. In the first canal, the tendon of extensor pollicis brevis, abductor pollicis longus muscle. I have told you this extensor retinaculum makes different canal to accommodate different muscular tendon of posterior muscle. So the first canal, it holds the tendon of extensor pollicis brevis and abductor pollicis longus muscle. In the second canal, the tendon of extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis muscle. In the third canal, the tendon of extensor pollicis longus muscle. In the fourth canal, the tendon of extensor digitorum muscle and extensor indicis muscle. In the fifth canal, the tendon of extensor digiti minimi muscle. In the fifth canal, in the fifth canal, the tendon of extensor digiti minimi muscle, and in the sixth canal, the tendon of extensor carpi radialis muscle. So we have seen over the extensor retinaculum, there are 6 canal in which these canals are giving or holding different muscle tendon as we have discussed here. So all extensor tendon of forearm muscle are placed or hold within the all these 6 canal. Now come to the posterior compartment of forearm muscle. Posteriorly, the posterior compartment of forearm muscle can be divided into 2 groups, lateral group of muscle and medial. Medial is this, medial towards mid side, towards little finger, and lateral towards the thumb. So we can divide the posterior compartment or extensor compartment of forearm muscle into lateral muscle group and medial muscle group. First discuss about the lateral muscle group. Laterally, in the posterior compartment, the forearm or the extensor compartment has the following muscle. Number 1 is brachioradialis muscle, number 2 is extensor carpi radialis longus muscle, and number 3 is extensor carpi radialis brevis. You can see in the diagram, this is lateral compartment of posterior arm muscle. They are mainly 3 muscle, brachioradialis, this is the brachioradialis, second one is extensor carpi radialis longus, third one is extensor carpi radialis brevis. So also it is ECL and ECRB. In short form, we are termed this muscle as a ECL and ECRB. First, I will discuss about the brachioradialis muscle. The brachioradialis muscle is the lateral compartment of extensor muscle. Lateral compartment of extensor muscle. It originates from the lateral border of humerus. You can see in the diagram, it originates from the lateral border of the distal humerus. Lateral border of distal humerus, distal 1/3, and lateral epicondyle humerus. It has origin started from the lateral border of distal humerus to the lateral epicondyle of humerus. You can see here, this is a lateral border of distal 1/3 of humerus. The brachioradial muscle originates from here to lateral epicondyle. It has this amount of muscle origin. Now come to the insertion of brachioradial muscle. The tendon of brachioradial muscle is inserted into the radial styloid process of radius. At the end of radius bone, there is one process is known as radial styloid process, and the brachioradial muscle is inserted over the radial styloid process of radial bone. Now come to the innervation of brachioradialis muscle. It is innervated by the radial nerve. This muscle is innervated by radial nerve, and the root value of radial nerve in brachial plexus is C5 to C6 segment. Now come to the function of this muscle. The main function of brachioradial muscle is flexion in elbow. It brings the forearm into intermediate position between pronation and supination. This is resting position. Normally, this supine position of elbow is known as, this is the anatomical position, but this is known as supine flexion of elbow, and supine flexion of elbow is performed by biceps brachii. But when you perform the flexion of elbow in mid prawn position, this is the supine, this is prawn. When you keep your hand like this is the mid prawn position of elbow, and the movement of elbow or flexion of elbow in mid prawn position is the function of brachioradialis muscle. The next muscle of radial lateral group is extensor carpi radialis longus. It originated from the more distally. It also originates from the lateral border of humerus, but it is have more lateral origin, more distal origin than brachioradialis from the lateral border of ulna. This is the lateral border of ulna. Suppose if the brachioradialis originates from here, so ECL or extensor carpi longus, extensor carpi radialis ECRL will be originate from the some distal portion of the lateral border of humerus. Now come to the insertion. The tendon of ECRL or extensor carpi radialis longus muscle crosses underneath to the extensor retinaculum. It is inserted into the dorsal side of basis of second metacarpal bone. Dorsal side of base of second metacarpal. This is first metacarpal. This is a first metacarpal, and this is the second metacarpal. So if you see here, posterior, it is posterior muscle. So this is the base of, just distal to wrist, from where your metacarpal start. So your ECRL is inserted over the base of second metacarpal bone. Now come to the innervation of ECRL. The ECRL is supplied by the deep branch of radial nerve through C6 and C7. As we have seen, our brachioradialis, our anconeus, triceps and ECRL, all are extensor. Anconeus and triceps is extensor of elbow, whereas your brachioradialis is a flexor in mid prawn position, whereas our ECRL is the extensor of wrist. It is also supplied by radial nerve. Now come to the function of ECRL. ECRL means extensor carpi radialis longus. The extensor carpi radialis longus muscle is an extensor of wrist joint and abduct the forearm and hand laterally. This is the extensor of wrist joint. Suppose this is a wrist joint, and when you produce movement is known as extension of wrist joint. Second thing, it is also the abductor. Abduction means going away from body. Abduction is also known as radial deviation. So ECRL is responsible for extension of wrist as well as radial deviation. It means radial deviation means your hand is going away from midline. This is known as radial deviation. So ECRL is responsible for extension of wrist joint as well as abduction of wrist joint, also known as radial deviation of wrist joint. Now come to the next muscle of posterior compartment is extensor carpi radialis brevis. This is third muscle of lateral posterior compartment muscle. This is the third posterior compartment muscle which has the lateral origin of extensor origin is extensor carpi radialis longus. This muscle has an origin more distally than brachioradialis. It means it has almost common origin along with ECRL. So ECRL and ECRB, extensor carpi radialis longus and extensor carpi radialis brevis, both has a common origin just distal to the origin of brachioradialis and just near the lateral epicondyle. So now come to the origin of extensor carpi radialis brevis. The ECRB arises from the lateral epicondyle of humerus. As we have seen from brachioradialis, all three are posterior muscle, posterior compartment muscle of forearm, and they have lateral origin. The first brachioradialis originate from the distal 1/3 of lateral border of humerus, whereas ECRL originate little more distally from the brachioradialis, and third muscle of lateral origin, that is ECRB, has a origin just directly over the lateral epicondyle of humerus, and insertion, the tendon of extensor carpi radialis brevis passes under the, because all the tendons are passing through the extensor retinaculum. So it is inserted into the dorsal side of base of third metacarpal. As we have seen, ECRB and ECRL, ECRL is inserted at second base of second metacarpal, whereas ECRB is inserted at the base of third metacarpal. And we have seen the function of ECRL is extension of wrist as well as radial deviation of hand. Same as here, the function, come to the innervation of ECRB. The ECRB is supplied by a deep branch of radial nerve, and the root value of this nerve is C7 to C8. Now come to the function of ECRB. The ECRB muscle extend the hand in wrist joint. It can also function as a antagonist of ulnar abduction without any preceding radio abduction. It means, as we know, every movement is not possible in smooth and coordinated manner without agonist and antagonist action. We all know when agonist contract, antagonist should relax. So I have told you these two muscles, ECRB and ECRL, they are originating somewhere near the lateral epicondyle of humerus and inserting over the base of second and third. ECRL is over the second and ECRB over the third. So both are able to extend the wrist as well as readily deviate the wrist. So when they are deviating the wrist, they are acting as a, if anything is going to deviate your wrist in adduction or ulnar deviation, the both muscle will work as a antagonist. So these two muscles, ECRB and ECRL, has a very great clinical importance in our sports. Like you have heard about tennis elbow. Tennis elbow is the most common soft tissue injury, muscle injury in cricket, in lawn tennis, in hockey. Most of the, or golf, the players who play all these things, they have inflammation. What is tennis elbow? It is just the inflammation of these two muscles, ECRB and ECRL. So whenever any person is having tennis elbow, you just assess the integrity of all these two muscles, ECRL and ECRB. Both are, and when you know the origin and insertion of this muscle, you can assess whether the patient is having inflammation. So the ultimate purpose of treating inflammation is stop using that muscle. So how can we stop using that muscle? When we know the origin, insertion and action of muscle. So by knowing the action, we can stop. So we will ask the patient, don't go for wrist extension. If a person is having tennis elbow, but tennis elbow is vague term. Being a sports physiotherapist or a sports physical educator or being a trainer, we should know the pathology in terms of the involvement, not by the name. By knowing tennis elbow, we cannot guess what is this. But when we have a complete information, tennis elbow is the inflammation of ECRB and ECRL, then we should attempt to decrease the inflammation, decrease the pain by giving proper intervention. So if you want to give some intervention, we could apply something over the, directly over the origin. And if we want to stop the action, we should try to stabilize the insertion, so we cannot move the joint. So we can, whenever we are going to manage tennis elbow for our sports person who is having tennis elbow, we can stop mobility over his joint, mainly extension and radial deviation. As well as if we want to apply some electrotherapeutic modalities, we should apply that directly over the origin of the ECRL and ECRB. Now come to the second medial muscle group of posterior forearm, posterior arm. We have discussed about the posterior muscle lateral compartment. Now we are going to discuss posterior muscle of forearm, but the medial compartment. Medial compartment muscle has two layers. Medial compartment of forearm muscle has two layers, superficial layer and deep layer. First, I would like to discuss about the muscle of superficial layer. They are mainly three muscles: the extensor digitorum muscle, the extensor digiti minimi muscle, and the extensor carpi ulnaris muscle. Extensor carpi ulnaris, extensor digiti minimi, extensor digitorum muscle. Because these are all are posterior muscle. All are posterior muscle. One group is lateral. Lateral is controlling mainly the motion of thumb as well as radial deviation, but medial is controlling mainly the motion of ulnar deviation as well as extension. So first I would like to discuss about the superficial layer of medial posterior muscle of forearm. First is extensor carpi ulnaris. What is the origin of extensor carpi ulnaris? It arises from the posterior surface of lateral epicondyle. Posterior surface of lateral epicondyle. This is lateral epicondyle. The lateral muscle, this is lateral epicondyle. It arises from the posterior surface of lateral epicondyle. From here, this is the epicondyle. This is the epicondyle. And insertion, the tendon of extensor carpi ulnaris passes under the extensor, as we have discussed before. All the tendons which are coming from the back side of the arm are going through a canal which is found by the extensor retinaculum. So the tendon of extensor carpi ulnaris passes through the extensor retinaculum and inserted distally onto the ulnar side of base of fifth metacarpal bone. This is the fifth metacarpal bone. This is the little finger, fifth finger, and this arm is made up of metacarpal. So this is the head of metacarpal and this is the base from where your hand starts. So all of the tendon of extensor carpi ulnaris is inserted over the base of fifth metacarpal. Now come to the innervation of extensor carpi ulnaris is supplied by the deep branch of radial nerve. As we have seen, maximum supply to all these muscle is by radial nerve. So these muscle are also wrist extensor. This is also supplied by radial nerve, deep branch, and the root value for this nerve is C7 to C8. Now come to the function of extensor carpi ulnaris. The extensor carpi ulnaris extend the hand in wrist joint and ulnar adduct. It is like extensor carpi ECRB and ECRL, they also extend the wrist, and extensor carpi ulnaris also extend the wrist. But the difference between both muscle, the ECRB and ECRL are responsible for radial deviation, whereas extensor carpi ulnaris has a other function. It is responsible for ulnar deviation or medial adduction. You can say adduction and this is abduction. Clear? So extensor carpi ulnaris is responsible for wrist extension and ulnar deviation of our wrist joint. The next muscle of superficial layer is extensor digitorum muscle. Extensor digitorum muscle. The extensor digitorum muscle arises from the lateral epicondyle of humerus. It means it is also same origin from the radial collateral ligament of elbow joint as well as from the antebrachial fascia. It means this muscle extensor digitorum also has a common origin along with other extensor muscle from lateral epicondyle, and inserted muscle has a 4 tendon. This muscle has a 4 tendon. You can see here, this muscle has a 4 tendon which passes underneath the extensor retinaculum. The tendon of extensor digitorum is also all extensor tendon are passing through the extensor retinaculum. Each tendon divide completely into 2 bundles. The bundles are inserted laterally and medially into respective border of the base of 2nd to 5th middle phalanges. 2nd to 5th middle phalanges. Base of 2nd to 5th. Second, this is 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So the all tendon are coming from lateral epicondyle. This is our lateral epicondyle. They are coming from here, coming down in 4 different tendons and inserting over the base of second. You can see you have 3 phalanges, one distal, middle and proximal. So if you divide first, second and third, so all 4 tendons are inserting over the base of second phalanges. These second phalanges, they are all are inserting over here. So they can cause extension of PIP joint, proximal interphalangeal joint. We have discussed insertion of extensor digitorum. Now come to the innervation of extensor digitorum. The extensor digitorum is supplied by the deep branch of radial nerve like other. It is also having root value of C7 to C8 because radial nerve in brachial plexus have a root value of C7 to C8. Now come to the function of extensor digitorum. The extensor digitorum muscle extend one after another to the distal phalanx, the middle phalanx and the proximal phalanx, and lastly the hand in the wrist. It can also take part in the extension of elbow joint because it is long muscle. It is having crossing this joint, this joint, this joint, this joint. So when we have taught about the active and passive insufficiency, this extensor digitorum, digitorum mean digits, digitorum mean digits. So this muscle is producing extension over DIP joint, over PIP joint, over MCP joint, as well as some amount of wrist joint, because this muscle is coming from here and here. Whenever it will shorten, the muscle will shorten, it will produce movement over here, over here, over all the joint. It can produce extension over all the joint from where it crosses. So whenever there is shortening in this muscle, it can causes the extension of wrist joint, extension of MCP joint, extension of DIP joint, as well as extension of PIP joint of first, second and third phalanges. Now come to the next muscle. Second muscle of lateral medial group of forearm, extensor forearm, is extensor digiti minimi, extensor digiti minimi, and this muscle originated from the posterior surface of lateral epicondyle of humerus. Okay, so this muscle is also having origin from the lateral epicondyle of humerus, and insertion, the tendon of extensor digiti minimi passes underneath the extensor reticulum like all other tendon of extensor. It fuses distally with one of the tendon of extensor digitorum muscle, the tendon of little finger. Clear? So as we have seen, extensor digitorum is supplying tendon to all 4 muscle except thumb, but this tendon of extensor digiti minimi is attached with the tendon of extensor digitorum. Now come to the innervation of extensor digiti minimi. This muscle is innervated by the deep branch of radial nerve, and the root value, as like other forearm muscle, is C6 and 7. Now come to the function of extensor digiti minimi. The main function of extensor digiti minimi muscle is extend the little finger independently from the other. You can see, if you want to extend one finger, it can cause extension of other finger, but we can produce extension over the little finger separately without. Whenever you want to extend one finger, it can produce some, you can see here, because it is because of attachment of extensor digiti minimi with the tendon of extensor digitorum. So this muscle is helping in the extension of little finger. Now come to the anterior compartment of forearm muscle. Now come to the anterior compartment. They are mainly known as we have seen in the posterior compartment, almost all of the muscle of posterior compartment, either from lateral group or medial group, they all are having origin somewhere near the lateral epicondyle, and that's why lateral epicondyle of humerus is known as common extensor origin of forearm and hand muscle. Same as here, almost all of the muscle of anterior compartment of forearm originate somewhere near the medial epicondyle of humerus. So we can divide the anterior compartment of forearm muscle into 4 layers: the first layer muscle, the second layer muscle, the third layer muscle, and fourth layer muscle. First I would discuss the first layer muscle of forearm. They are basically pronator teres muscle, flexor carpi radialis muscle, the palmaris longus muscle, and flexor carpi ulnaris muscle. So first is flexor carpi ulnaris muscle. This muscle originates from the medial epicondyle of humerus, just and from the anterior surface, of medial epicondyle of humerus, and inserted over the first and palmar side of second metacarpal bone. It is also having flexor like extensor retinaculum. From the anterior compartment of wrist, there is one retinaculum is known as flexor retinaculum, and this muscle tendon is passing through the flexor retinaculum and inserted over the base of second metacarpal from the volar side. Like we have seen in extensor muscle, the muscle are attaching over the dorsal side, but this muscle is attaching over the volar side of forearm at the base of second metacarpal bone. So this muscle is having just opposite action of extensor carpi radialis. The innervation of this muscle is supplied by median nerve through C6 to C7 segment root value, and the function of this muscle is flex the hand over the forearm under the slight radial abduction, flexes the forearm under the slight radial deviation. When you flex, your thumb will come inside, and this is the flexion of wrist along with slight radial deviation. This is radial deviation. When your thumb is coming towards outside is radial deviation. When you perform flexion of wrist along with radial deviation, this is the function of flexor carpi radialis. Now come to the next muscle is pronator teres muscle. The next muscle of first layer of anterior compartment of forearm muscle is pronator teres. The pronator teres muscle have a separate origin for the humeral head and for the ulnar head. It means this muscle has two different origin. One fiber head is originate from the humerus and other is from ulna. You can see in the diagram the P teres or pronator teres muscle has two origin. And what is the insertion of this muscle? Pronator teres muscle is inserted into the middle of lateral surface of radius. It means the muscle is originating from medial epicondyle of humerus as well as proximal head of ulna and inserted over the lateral surface of radius. This muscle is also innervated by median nerve with a root value of C6 to C7, and the function of this muscle is the pronation of forearm and the hand. Muscle is mainly performing pronation. Pronation means your arm is facing dorsally, when your palm is facing in down direction. So this is the pronation. So this movement of arm facing your palm in down direction is because of contraction of pronator teres muscle. It also takes part in the flexion of forearm over the arm. This muscle, because this muscle is a two joint muscle, is crossing originating from humerus. So whenever there is flexion at the elbow joint, this muscle is going to help biceps brachii muscle to facilitate the flexion of elbow joint. The next muscle is palmaris longus muscle. It originates from the anterior surface of medial epicondyle of humerus, and it shares its tendon with all muscle which can have its origin. Insertion of this palmaris longus muscle, it also crosses over the flexor retinaculum and spread out in fan shape as a triangular fibrous sheet, forming palmar aponeurosis. These fibrous band then extended into fibrous layer of tendon sheath of second to fifth finger. Like palmaris longus is originating from the medial epicondyle of humerus, but it is having many tendons. You can see in the diagram it is having 4 tendons, and they are going to attach over the second to fifth finger, tendon sheath of over to second to fifth fingers. This muscle is also innervated by median nerve with a root value of C6 to C7. Now come to the function of palmaris longus. This muscle palmaris longus is muscle produce flexion of the wrist joint by way of palmar aponeurosis. The main function of palmaris longus is the flexion of wrist joint. Now come to the next muscle of this layer is flexor carpi ulnaris muscle. So this is the fourth muscle of first layer of anterior muscle of forearm, and the flexor carpi ulnaris have two head of origin, the humeral head which comes from medial epicondyle of humerus, and the ulnar head which arises from the medial border of olecranon as well as from the proximal 1/3 of posterior border of diaphysis of ulna. As you can see in the diagram, it has this flexor carpi ulnaris muscle has two origin, one from humerus medial epicondyle and another from the ulna, and the insertion is same as it is going through the flexural reticulum in the canal and inserted into the carpal bone, basically pisiform and hook of hamate. It is inserted over the pisiform and hook of hamate on the palmar side of fifth metacarpal bone. It means the tendon of flexor carpi ulnaris muscle runs underneath the flexural retinaculum and is inserted into pisiform hook of the hamate and on the palmar side of fifth metacarpal.
Good morning everybody. Today we will be discussing about the exercises of the forearm muscles. Before going through the exercise session, we will go through the different parts or different bones and muscles around the forearm. Now the important bones in the forearm region is radius and ulna. The radius is the lateral bone, we can say it is the lateral bone of the forearm. The radius articulate superiorly with the humerus and forms the elbow joint along with ulna. And at the lower side, it articulates with the scaphoid and lunate bones and forms the wrist joint. And the medial bone is the ulna, and with the ulna, it makes three articulating joints. The first one is a proximal radio-ulnar joint, the second one is a distal radio-ulnar joint, and there is a middle joint which is formed by interosseous membrane. Now the ulna. Ulna is the medial bone. It is the medial bone of the forearm. Proximally, along with the radius, it articulates with the humerus and forms the elbow joint. At the same time, distally, it articulates with the radius and forms the distal radio-ulnar joint. Now, there is an interosseous membrane which binds the radius and ulna. This is also known as medial or middle radio-ulnar joint. Now, we will go through the different muscles at the forearm region. The muscles of the forearm region can be divided into two parts. The muscles of the anterior compartment and the muscles of the posterior compartment of the forearm. Now, again the anterior compartment muscles can be categorized into two parts. The muscles which are superficial and the muscles which are deep. There are 5 superficial muscles and 3 deep muscles are present at the anterior compartment of the forearm. The names of the superficial muscles are, these are pronator teres, flexor carpi ulnaris, flexor carpi radialis, palmaris longus, flexor digitorum superficialis. So all these superficial muscles are having the almost same origin, that is the medial epicondylae of the humerus. This is the common flexor origin for almost all of the superficial muscles, and these are the muscles which does the movements of the wrist joint. Now the deep muscles are flexor pollicis longus, flexor digitorum profundus and pronator quadratus. These muscles are seen deep to the superficial muscle groups. Now we will go through the anatomy of the superficial muscles briefly. The first muscle is the pronator teres. By name itself, we can understand the action of this muscle. It is the main pronator of the forearm. Along with that, it fluxes the elbow also. This muscle is having two heads. Origin is from two heads, that is one a humeral head and the second one a ulnar head. Humeral head start from the common flexor origin, that is the medial epicondylae of the humerus. And ulnar head starts from the medial border of the coronoid process of ulna. Then it comes down and attached to the lateral aspect of the shaft of the radius. So, it's the nerve supply is from the median nerve and C7, C6 and C7. The action we will be knowing that pronator, that is the pronator teres, it is the pronator of the forearm. Along with that, it is as it crosses the elbow joint. It is the flexor of the elbow, but it is an accessory muscle for the flexion. The next muscle is the flexor carpi radialis. Again, its origin is from the common flexor origin of the superficial muscle. That is, the medial epicondylae of the humerus is the origin of the muscle. Then it goes downwards and it is attached to it inserted to the base of the second and third metacarpals. Nerve supply again from the median nerve, and action is flexion of the hand at the wrist joint, and it also adduct the hand at the wrist joint, that is, it is also known as radial deviation. So, the action of the muscle is flexor carpi radialis is, the first one is flexion of the hand at the wrist joint, and the second action is the radial deviation, we can call it as abduction of the wrist. The next muscle is the palmaris longus. Again, its origin is from the common flexor origin, that is the medial epicondylae of the humerus, and it goes down and it is inserted to the flexor retinaculum and palmar aponeurosis. So, again its nerve supply is the median nerve and action is flexion of the hand at the wrist joint. These are the flexors of the hand at the wrist joint. Next muscle is the flexor carpi ulnaris. This muscle is having two functions. The first one is, these are the flexors of the hand at the wrist joint. Along with that, it is the ulnaris muscle, and its another function is its adduction of the wrist joint. That is, we can call it as again ulnar deviation of the wrist. Again, this muscle is having two origin. The first one is a humeral head and the second one is a ulnar head. Humeral head is the common flexor origin, that is the medial epicondylae of the humerus. At the same time, ulnar head from the medial aspect of the olecranon process of ulna and the posterior border of the ulna. So, the muscle is having two heads, that is origin is from two heads, a humeral head and a ulnar head. Humeral head from the medial epicondylae of the humerus, ulnar head from the medial aspect of the olecranon process and the posterior border of the ulna. Then it goes downwards and attached to the pisiform bone, hook of hamate, base of the fifth metacarpal bone. Here the nerve supply is the ulnar nerve. Action is, the first one is, these are the flexors of the hand, along with that it adduct the hand at the wrist joint, that is, it is the ulnar deviation of the hand. Next muscle is the flexor digitorum superficialis. It's having two heads, two origins. The first one is a humero-ulnar head. Origin is from the medial epicondylia of the humerus and medial margin of the coronoid process of ulna. Radial head is arising from the oblique line on the anterior surface of the shaft of the radius. Again it goes down and it makes 4 different tendons at distal part, and each tendon again attached to the sides of the middle phalanx and other 4 medial fingers. Now, the nerve supply is again the medial nerve, and main function of this action of this muscle is flexion of the middle phalanx of the fingers, and this flexes the proximal phalanx at a weak proximal phalanx flexion and it flexion at the wrist. So, it is having 3 functions. The first one is flexion at the wrist, second one is the flexion at the middle phalanx and flexion at the proximal phalanx also. But in case of proximal phalanx, these are the weak flexors of the proximal phalanx. So, these are the 5 muscles of the anterior superficial muscles of the anterior compartment of the forearm. Now, the deep muscles of the anterior compartment. The first one is the flexor pollicis longus. By the name itself, these are the flexors of the phalanx of the thumb. Flexor pollicis longus origin again the middle of the anterior surface of the shaft of the radius and from adjoining part of the interosseous membrane, and it comes down and the tendon passes distally through the carpal tunnel and attached to the distal phalanx of the thumb. So, its nerve supply the anterior interosseous branch of the median nerve, and the function is the flexion of the phalanx of the thumb. Next muscle is the flexor digitorum profundus. That is, origin is from the upper 3/4 of the anterior-medial shaft of the ulna, and the muscle divide into 4 tendons just prior to the transversing the carpal tunnel and attached to the distal phalanx of the 4 fingers. Nerve supply, the medial part is supplied by the ulnar nerve and the lateral portion is supplied by the anterior interosseous branch of the median nerve. Now, the function is flexion of the fingers, and this is the exclusive flexor of the distal phalanx, and this is the weak flexor of the wrist. So, it is having 2 functions, and this is the exclusive flexor of the distal phalanx. Flexor digitorum profundus is the exclusive flexor of the distal phalanx, and again it is having function at the wrist joint also. It is flexor of the wrist also, but it is a weak flexor at the wrist joint. Next muscle of the anterior compartment, another deep muscle, is the pronator quadratus. Pronator quadratus origin from the lower quarter of the anterior surface of the shaft of the ulna. Then it comes down and insert to the lower quarter of the anterior surface of the shaft of the radius. So, it is seen at the distal part of the radius and ulna, you can see in the picture. Then the nerve supply is the anterior interosseous branch of the median nerve. Action is pronation of the forearm. This is the distal muscle, and its action is, by the name itself we can understand it is the pronator of the forearm, action pronation of the forearm. Now, the muscles of the posterior compartment of the forearm. So, we already discussed that the muscles of the forearm can be divided into 2 portions, that is the muscles of the anterior compartment and muscles of the posterior compartment. The posterior compartment muscles, these are especially the wrist extensors. The main function is extension of the wrist joint. Now, we will go through the muscles of the posterior compartment. Again, the posterior compartment muscles can be divided into 2 parts again, superficial muscle groups and deep muscle groups. The superficial muscles include extensor carpi radialis brevis, extensor digitorum, extensor digiti minimi, extensor carpi ulnaris, brachioradialis, extensor carpi radialis longus. The deep muscles include supinator, abductor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis longus, extensor indicis and extensor pollicis brevis. So, by the name itself almost all these muscles work on the thumb. Now, superficial muscles of the posterior compartment. The first muscle is the extensor carpi radialis longus. Its origin from the lower third of the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus. Then it comes down and it is inserted to the posterior surface of the base of the second metacarpal bone. Nerve supply, radial nerve, most of these superficial muscles are supplied by the radial nerve, and action is extension at the wrist joint. Along with that, abduct the hand at the wrist joint, that is the movement is the radial deviation. So, the extensor carpi radialis longus is having 2 functions. The first one is extension motion at the wrist joint, along with that the radial deviation or abduction of the hand at the wrist joint. The next muscle is the extensor carpi radialis brevis. Again, this muscle is having 2 functions again, that is the first one is extension at the wrist joint and radial deviation of the hand at the wrist joint. Its origin is from, there is a common extensor origin, that is from the lateral epicondylae of the humerus, and it comes down and inserted into the posterior surface or the base of the third metacarpal bone. Nerve supply is posterior interosseous nerve. Next muscle is the extensor carpi ulnaris. You can see in the picture, extensor carpi ulnaris, its origin again from the common extensor origin, that is lateral epicondylae of the humerus, and it is inserted to the posterior surface of the base of the fifth metacarpal bone. That is, its main function is extension and adduction of the hand at the wrist joint. So, it is the extension, adduction means here it is the ulnar deviation, that is extension along with the ulnar deviation, extension and ulnar deviation of the hand. Next muscle is the extensor digitorum. Its origin is from the again the common extensor origin, that is the lateral epicondylae of the humerus. Then again the muscle divided into 4 parts and forms a dorsal expansion, and the nerve supply is the posterior interosseous nerve, and action is again extension at the metacarpophalangeal joint. It also assists in extension of the proximal and distal interphalangeal joint of the arm. Extensor digitorum, and the main function of extensor digitorum is it assists in extension of the proximal and distal interphalangeal joint, and it extends the metacarpophalangeal joint, and its origin is from the common extensor origin, that is epicondylae of the humerus, and it comes down and it divides into 4 tendons and it forms the dorsal expansion, and nerve supply is from the posterior interosseous nerve. Next muscle is the extensor digiti minimi. It is again its origin from the common extensor origin, that is from the lateral epicondylae of the humerus, and it is inserted via 2 tendons on the dorsal expansion of the little finger. So, its nerve supply is the posterior interosseous nerve, and action is assist in extension of the little finger from the digiti minimi. The name digiti minimi itself, we can understand that it is extension of the little finger. Next muscle is the brachioradialis. This muscle is in the extensor compartment, but it is having a different function. Origin is from upper 2/3 of the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus, and it is inserted to the base of the styloid process of the radius. Nerve supply is the radial nerve, and the function is it fluxes the forearm and assists in rotating or restoring the arm in mid-prone position depending upon the initial position. These are the superficial, the muscles we were discussed were the superficial muscles. Now we go through the different deep muscles of the forearm, of the deep muscles of the posterior compartment of the forearm. The first comes the extensor pollicis longus. Its origin from the posterior surface of the ulna, and it is inserted to the posterior surface of the base of the distal phalanx of the thumb. So, as the name pollicis implies that it is related to the thumb itself. The main function is it is the extensor pollicis, that is extension of the thumb. Nerve supply is again the posterior interosseous nerve. Next muscle is the abductor pollicis longus. Again, from the name itself we can understand that it abducts the thumb. Abduction and extension of the thumb is the function of the abductor pollicis longus. Origin is middle and the posterior surface of the shaft of the ulna and radius, and inserted to the posterior surface or the base of the first metacarpal bone. Nerve supply from the posterior interosseous nerve. Action is abduction and extension of the thumb. Next deep muscle is the extensor pollicis brevis. Its origin from the posterior surface of the radius, and it comes down and it is inserted to the posterior surface of the proximal phalanx of the thumb. Nerve supply is the posterior interosseous nerve. Again, from the name itself we can understand what is the function of this muscle. Extensor pollicis brevis, it extends the thumb. Extension of the thumb is its function. Now we will go through the different stretching exercise for the wrist joint, that is a flexor stretching of the wrist joint. Now the first one is the praying wrist flexor stretch. Here the initial position should be, the person should be standing, the subject should be standing, placing the palm together in front of the body. It is like a praying position. Point the fingers towards the neck. Now We are starting it by pushing the hands together, lower away from the body until the wrist separates. Then hold the stretch for some time and relax, then repeat for the opposite arm. So, this is called praying wrist flexor stretch. So, again I am demonstrating it again. Place the palm together in front of the body and the fingers should be towards the neck side. That is almost like a praying position. Then you are pushing the hand downwards towards the one side of the hand, towards one side, and until the wrist separates. And we are getting the stretching of the forearm muscles, the forearm flexors, and hold the stretch, then relax and do for the opposite hand. So, this is called praying wrist flexor stretch. Now, the next method of stretching the wrist flexors are seated wrist flexor stretch. The subject should be sitting on the floor. Then he should place the palm on the floor to the sides behind the hips with fingers pointing towards back. Now, we are asking the subject to lean back with his arms straight, where he is not bending his arms. We are asking him to lean his back with keeping the elbow and arm straight, and he will be getting the stretch now, and hold the stretch for some time, then relax and keep the arm straight again. So, again one more time we can demonstrate it. The subject should be sitting on the floor. We are asking the subject to place the palm on the floor sides behind the hips with the fingers pointing towards the back side. Now, we are asking the subject to lean back with the arm straight and hold. He will be getting the stretching now, and we are asking the subject to hold the stretch for some time, 5 to 10 seconds, and keeping the arm and elbow straight, keep the arm straight, and then after that he can relax and continue the stretch, do 3-4 times. The next type of stretch for the wrist flexors are single arm wrist flexor stretch. For this, the person should be standing position with the palm facing downward, grasp the underside of the fingers with other hand and straighten the elbow. Elbow should be straight. Now, pull the fingers and wrist upward and back towards the forearm. Pull the fingers and wrist towards the forearm, then he will be getting stretch on the wrist flexors, and repeat and do for the opposite arm. Next type of stretching for the wrist flexors are kneeling wrist flexor stretch. For this, the subject should kneel on the floor. Place the palm of the hand on the floor with the fingers pointing towards his knees. Now, shift the body back with the elbow straight, and he can get the stretch in the superficial muscle, the muscles of the that is wrist flexor muscles. Hold the stretch for some time and relax. Next type of stretch for the wrist flexors are wrist stretch wall, that is wall wrist stretch. The position of the subject should be standing, he should be standing facing a wall with outstretched arm facing up. Place the fingers on the wall pointing downward, the fingers should be pointing downward. Slowly try to place the whole hand flat on the wall, and along with that extension of the wrist. So, hold the stretch for 10 to 30 seconds and relax. This is another method of stretching the wrist flexor. This is also called wrist flexor stretch on the wall. Next type of stretch is the bilateral wrist flexor stretch. It is begin with the elbow straight, wrist and fingers bent backward and position on a firm surface. Now, gently apply some pressure through the wrist. So, he will be getting a stretching over the flexors of the forearm, and hold it for 5 to 10 seconds and repeat. Okay. Now, the stretching exercise for the wrist extensors. So, we already discussed regarding the wrist extensor muscle. These are the muscles of the posterior compartment of the forearm. So, these muscles, there are superficial and deep muscles, and there are some exercises. Now, we are going to demonstrate some exercises which stretches this posterior muscle, that are the wrist extensor. These are called wrist extensor stretches. There are different types of wrist extensor stretches are there. We will be demonstrating right now. The first type of wrist extensor stretch is the single arm wrist extensor stretch. here this is the most commonly used type of extensor stretch. We are keeping the elbow straight and bend the wrist downward using the other hand until feel a mild to moderate stretch. The stretch should be pain free stretch, and hold it for 15 seconds and repeat. Next type of stretching is the kneeling wrist extensor stretch. The subject should kneel on the floor or mat. Then flex the wrist and place the top of the hand on the floor with the fingers pointing towards the knee. The fingers should point towards the knee and lean against the floor with the elbow straight. His elbow should be straight and lean against the floor. Then hold the stretch. He will be getting stretching on the extensor muscles of the wrist, and hold the stretch for 10 to 20 seconds and relax. Now, strengthening exercise for the wrist joint, especially the wrist flexors. We will go through the wrist flexor strengthening. The first type of strengthening is the barbell wrist curl. So, the subject should be sit on a bench and keep the forearm on his lap while holding the barbell, a barbell palms up. Using only the hand and the wrist, curl the barbell up towards the ceiling as high as possible. Then keeping your forearm flat on your lap. When you return to the starting position, allow the barbell to roll all the way down to your fingertips and then repeat. So, he is moving the barbell up and down and repeat. Hold the strengthening for some time, then relax. Here the target muscle is the wrist flexor muscle. Next type of wrist curl is the dumbbell wrist curl or dumbbell wrist curl. That is, the subject should be sit and hold the dumbbell with an upper hand grip. Now, rest the forearm on the bench between the thighs with your wrist just beyond the edge of the bench. Now, allow the dumbbell to roll down the palm towards the fingers, curl the dumbbell back up and flex your wrist. Once you perform the desired number of repetition, we can do with the opposite other forearm also. Here the target muscle is the wrist flexor muscle, strengthening of the wrist flexors. Now, the next type of exercise is the strengthening of the wrist extensors. We already discussed different wrist extensor muscle. These are the muscles of the posterior compartment of the forearm, and this muscle we will be discussing about how we can strengthen the wrist extensors, that is the posterior muscles of the forearm. The first type of exercise is the barbell reverse wrist curl. The subject should be sitting on a flat bench and keep the forearm on the lap while holding the barbell palms down. Now, using only your hand and the wrist, reverse curl the barbell up towards the ceiling as high as possible, keeping your forearm flat on your lap. Then lower the barbell down as far as you can, then repeat. So, here the target muscle is the wrist extensor muscle. Next type of strengthening exercise for the extensor muscle is the dumbbell reverse wrist curl. The subject should be sitting and holding the dumbbell with overhand grip. Rest your forearm on the bench with 90-degree angle. The forearm should be at 90-degree angle, holding the dumbbell off the side of the bench. This position is generally more comfortable position. Then lower the dumbbell as far as you can. Then reverse curl the dumbbell back up and flex the wrist. Then once you perform the desired number of repetition, then go for the other arm. Next is wrist curl, is the 2-arm palm down wrist curl. Here the subject should be kneel next to a flat bench and lay forearms across the bench while holding the 2 dumbbells palms down. Using only the hand and wrist, lift the dumbbell up towards the ceiling as high as possible, keeping your forearm flat on the bench. When you return to the starting position, allow the dumbbell to come down to the starting position and then repeat. So, this is called 2-arm palm down wrist curl. Next type of strengthening exercise is the dumbbell radial deviation. Here the subject should be holding the dumbbell with his hand with elbow extended and wrist also extended. Now, the subject has to radially deviate the arm towards both sides, radial and ulnar deviation with the weighted dumbbell. Now, next type of strengthening is the dumbbell lying pronation. That is especially we strengthen the pronator muscles. Now, here the subject should be lying on a bench or mat and the subject should be holding the dumbbell. Then keep the elbow 90-degree bent and place the arm on the hip or sides of the waist. Then first is position the thumb upwards. So, this is the position where the subject is supinated. Then rotate the dumbbell so that thumb turns downwards. So, this is the pronation position and return and repeat. So, this is called dumbbell lying pronation. This is especially to strengthen the pronator muscle group. This is the dumbbell lying pronation exercise, arms down. The subject should be again lying down and the position of the elbow should be 90-degree flexed. Now, position the thumb down with the weight. Now, rotate the dumbbell in such a way that thumbs turn upwards, that is pronation movement, and return to the original position and repeat it. Next type of exercise is the dumbbell seated pronation. That is, the subject should be sitting next to an elevated surface and approximately at the armpit height. Bend the elbow approximately 90-degree and place the upper arm on elevated surface, position the thumb upward, that is supinated. Then rotate the dumbbell so the thumb turns downwards, that is the pronation movement, and return to the original position. So, this is called dumbbell seated pronation. We will be discussing about the exercises of the muscles of the shoulder. The first exercises for the anterior deltoid is the barbell behind neck press. Here the subject should be grasping the barbell with overhand grip. Now, position the bar behind the neck, then press the bar upward or push the bar upward until the arms are extended overhead. Then return behind the neck and repeat. This exercise is done to strengthen the anterior deltoid muscle. Along with the anterior deltoid muscle, there are some more muscles which act synergistically. It includes the lateral deltoid, supraspinatus, triceps, trapezius middle and lower trapezius, and serratus anterior muscle are the muscles which work synergistically along with the anterior deltoid. So, while doing the barbell behind neck press, we are strengthening the anterior deltoid. Along with that, the other muscles are also getting strengthened. Next exercise is the dumbbell shoulder press. The position of the subject should be he should be in sitting position with the dumbbells on each side of the shoulders. The dumbbells should be on each side of the shoulders. Then press the dumbbell upward until the arms are extended overhead, and then lower it towards the side of the shoulder and repeat it 3-4 times. The muscle acting here are the anterior deltoid muscle. The exercises we have seen right now is the dumbbell shoulder press. The target muscle is the anterior deltoid. It gives strengthening. It is a strengthening exercise, especially for the anterior deltoid. But some more muscles are also acting synergistically along with this muscle. The muscles are lateral deltoid, supraspinatus, triceps, then middle and lower trapezius, serratus anterior, and clavicular part of the pectoralis major. These are the muscles acting synergistically along with the anterior deltoid in doing this exercise. Now, next type of exercise is the barbell front raise. Here, the subject should be grasping the barbell with overhand grip with the elbow straight and slightly bent. Better to be the elbow straight. So, the person should be grasping the barbell with overhand grip with elbow straight or slightly bent. Raise the barbell forward and upward until the upper arms are above horizontal, and lower and repeat. This is called barbell front raise. the barbell front raise type of exercises, mainly concentrating the target muscle is the deltoid, anterior deltoid muscle group, but synergistically some more muscles are acting along with the anterior deltoid. It includes the pectoralis major muscle, that is especially the clavicular part of the pectoralis major muscle, the lateral deltoid muscle, and the trapezius, middle and lower trapezius, serratus anterior, especially the inferior digitation of that serratus anterior muscle are also acting synergistically along with this, along the anterior deltoid. Next type of exercise is the dumbbell front raise. Here the subject should be grasping the dumbbell in both hands. Position the dumbbell in front of the upper leg with the elbow straight or slightly bent. Now raise the dumbbell forward and upward until the upper arms are above horizontal. Then lower and repeat. Either we can do it simultaneously or we can do it separately, that alternate dumbbell. We can call the exercise as dumbbell alternate front raise. In the case of dumbbell front raise, the target muscle is the anterior deltoid. Along with the anterior deltoid, the synergistic muscle acting are the clavicular part of the pectoralis major, the lateral deltoid, middle and lower trapezius. These are the muscles acting synergistically along with the anterior deltoid in case of frontal dumbbell front raise.